Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Horror Analysis with me, Drew. Hey folks, today we're continuing with a horror tale, but we are now done with Noel Carroll. Essentially, we're completed with Noel Carroll because most of the rest of his book goes over his paradox of the mind, paradox of the heart. Come on now. Which is, why do we like horror? And that's not something I want to get into at all. I've read over the section. It's given me a headache. I'm skipping it. Horror is, as I said before, it's not an interest to say why horror. Horror exists. It's not really up for debate. People enjoy horror. I'm not all that fussed about why. It's healthy people enjoy horror. Mentally healthy people. I worry about people who don't enjoy any horror or have never enjoyed horror. They kind of freak me out sometimes. Because I worry what's going on in their mind, being a horror fan. I assume the worst. Today, and for the next couple of days, we're going to be going over our buddy Steven. Hi, Steven. In Danse Macabre. There we go. Steven, Mr. King, believes that the monster dictates the story. Well, the kind of monster it is influences what kind of story it is. And this is not something that anybody's really going to contest too much, besides Noel Carroll. In our minds, of course, if it's a werewolf story, it's going to certainly go over certain werewolf conventions. Not just silver bullets. It's going to be the interior struggle. Vampire stories, they're going to have to go over certain conventions, not just crosses and garlic. Stakes, nope, we're talking about outside evil and sexual tension and kinkiness, for lack of a better word. We'll go over that more. And that's always fun. No one really wants to talk about sex, so it's a boring subject, really. And of course, the story of Frankenstein is going to have some element of a dichotomy, like a cross between sympathy for the monster, and of course the desire to destroy the monster because it's a monster. There's a disconnect there in us. If you're doing a Frankenstein type monster right, or a vampire type monster right, or a werewolf type monster correctly, these are conventions that you're going to hit. And ghost stories have their own conventions. We'll go over ghost stories as well. They're a little bit weirder. And of course, they're a fuzzier card in the tarot deck. Tail of the Hook and Tail of the Tarot is how King splits it up. The tarot cards, which we're going to be going over later, the Thing Without a Name, the Werewolf, the Vampire. Why do I say it out of order always? Thing Without a Name, the Vampire, the Werewolf, and then the Ghost in the Bad Place is the weird one at the end. But the Tail of the Hook is the simplest. It is the easiest form of horror to understand. It is usually the shortest form of horror to understand. Pardon. Tales of the Hook involve limited, if any, characterization, and it's the simplest form of horror. As King says, Let me go over page numbers. Once again, I'm in the British edition. See the little pound symbol here, because I bought it in England 15 years ago, 10 years ago, for £5.99. Probably get it cheaper than that. So if you have the edition with the what scares me, I have the audiobook version of that. That one, the numbers may not correspond, but I'm on page 30 is where it begins here, and it goes to, well, I'm only going to really talk till about 40, because after that it goes into what makes a monster for King, which I already discussed. Now let's see. The simplest form of horror is the tale of the hook. He gets the name from the tale of the hook, which is actually quite nicely illustrated. He does tell us the tale of the hook on page, 32, 33? The tale of the hook is essentially a page and a half long, if that, in a mass market size, and he makes it longer because he tells it as he was told it. So he puts in the 50s, 60s way a kid would say it. The audiobook version is very good at this too, because the actor who voices it emulates it. I have my boiling water. It's quite hot, but it is good. So the tale of the hook is, let's see, I read over it today, but I'm not going to remember it properly. A boy and a girl high school couple, a cheerleader and the football player, go out to Lover's Lane in their car and to make out and do whatever they do at Lover's Lane. The radio comes on, interrupting the regular broadcast to let everyone know that a deranged madman has escaped from the insane asylum and is dangerous. He's called the Hook. Great name. Because he doesn't have a right hand, he has a metal hook that is razor sharp, and he was institutionalized because he went to lovers' lanes and chopped people's heads off. Chopped courting couples' heads off with this razor sharp hook. Lover's Lane pretty much clears out. Only this one couple are left. Ooh. So the girl is getting quite frightened. She hears rustling in the bushes, and the asylum isn't that far away from this Lover's Lane. And she hears, footsteps and stuff like that. So she's getting freaked out, and she's not getting into the making out. She's sort of getting the boy angry. The boy says, I'll protect you. We don't have anything to worry about. I'm not scared of this hook guy. However, the girl is just working herself into a panic. She even looks into the rearview mirror and thinks she sees someone peeking down, peeking at them from behind the bumper. And she says to the boy she's had enough. I'm not going to make out with you anymore. I'm never going to let you come. I'm never going to go out on a date with you again. Just take me home. I've had enough. So the jock is really pissed off now. So he says, fine. Puts a pedal to the metal, peels out, sends the dirt and gravel flying everywhere, and goes at 90 miles per hour out of the Lover's Lane. So now Lover's Lane's completely deserted because they were the only ones that were going to stay there. So he's angry. He's driving her home, but he calms down. Says, all right, well, at least, I'm taking her home. At least she'll go out with me again. We'll make out. It's all ridiculous, but whatever. Women, hey. He says to himself. So he gets out of his car when he gets to her house. Goes around and is going to open her door. When he's about to open her door, he stops. And he turns white as a sheet. And then he passes out. Faints dead away. The girls all, Bobby, what's up? Or, what's wrong? So she gets out of her car, goes over to see him, check his pulse, let her smack him his face, whatever they do in these situations. Or whatever women do in these situations, in these stereotypes. And when she closes the door behind her, she hears a jingling. She turns around. And what does she see? A razor-sharp hook dangling from her door handle. That's the tail of the hook. There is no characterization. All the characterization is for the boy and the girl, and they're as stereotypical as can be. I don't think... I gave one a name, Susie and Johnny. Susie Cheerleader and Johnny Football Hero. I don't think King even put that much into it. Oh, Louis. Louis is the guy. The girl doesn't even get a name. The bad guy is only named the Hook. That's it. There's no characterization. The story exists purely to scare the crap out of little kids. If it works, which it should in original conception, I'm not the best storyteller, and me just talking is weird for me, so my delivery's not great. However, as you've heard the story before, I'm not too worried about it. You know the story. You're going to translate it into a better version in your own mind as you hear it. There's no blood. There's no gore. You sort of hear about them the guy chopping off heads, but you don't really see him chopping off heads in your brain. It's just you hear about it. And the way King tells it, it's from the kid telling a kid point of view. So it's even less graphic. What it does, it gets under your skin. Even as I was telling it, I did the sly look over my shoulder to make sure someone wasn't creeping up behind me, even though I have a camera there and I can see behind me, all this. But there's this part off camera over here that I can't see, so I went, oh, hey. Just to make sure. Because it works on you. There's no revulsion, there's no gore, there's no grue. That doesn't even show anything. All it shows is the hook at the end. Which, if it's a guy's amputated hand or whatever, it may have like a bit of blood on it. That might have, blown off in the wind as the guy was driving home too. So all it shows is the hook. You can pretend that there's some blood on the end of, where that came out of a stump. But, that's sort of revolting, or it's horrific, but it's not, really anything. What gets to you is the terror. Terror is the highest in King's mind. It doesn't have to show anything to get into your skin. This is a tale of terror. It's also a tale of terror for Carol, of course, because in this story there's no monster. King doesn't care. Monster is not a prerequisite for a horror tale. Now, with this setup, you can make any kind of horror tale you like. You could make the Hook an alien from another planet, a creature raised from the dead. And King makes reference to an alternate reality monster, which I don't really know why he went with that. Clifford D. Simak, a creature from an alternate Earth. It doesn't matter what the hook is. It's a, you know, with that little characterization, it could be anything. So, Tale of Terror doesn't show anything, but it still gives you the willies. A horror tale will actually show you what you're scared of. That isn't as strong an emotion as the terror tale. And the revulsion one is the gross out. It's gore and blood and just guts. Guts all over the floor and all over the screen. Until you feel uncomfortable and creeped out that way. Guts with maggots in it. Nice easy way to gross people out. I have this set up. There's the terror, there's the horror, there's the revulsion. I have two more stories to go through to really illustrate the point. The second one was Monkey's Paw. The Monkey's Paw was Abrams. I think it's Abrams. I don't think it says in here, but I think it is Abrams. My apologies if it's not. I'm sure someone will let me know. The Monkey's Paw is an artifact. A family finds it or sold it. I don't remember. It's been over 10 years since I've read it. I read it in high school. Freshman in high school, so it's probably closer to 20 years. Is it? Oh my god, am I that old? No, let's call it 15 years. So, the family comes into possession of this monkey's paw. Grown son, mother, and father. The monkey's paw has 3 fingers on it, and it's petrified or mummified. Not petrified, mummified. And the paw grants wishes. I'm sure most of you have seen the Simpsons version of this as well. I'm sure there's several other versions of it as well, but Simpsons did a Treehouse of Horror with this one as well. The first one, the son wishes for $200 because he needs $200 for something or other. He goes to his factory the next day and is killed in the factory in an accident. The severance and the compensation the parents get is $200. So the monkey's paw grants wishes, but it's cursed wishes. I think they're warned of this beforehand. I don't really remember. You can get Monkey's Paw on LibriVox.org. I did check this beforehand a while ago. So, yeah, LibriVox.org is, of course, the free audiobook site for all public domain books and stories, etc. So the Monkey's Paw you can get easily and read it yourself, or listen to it yourself. So the second wish is made by the mother. The mother is grief-stricken with the loss of her son, as understandable, and she makes a wish that her son comes back, is alive again. The dad catches on, realizes these are cursed wishes. So as there's a knock on the door and the doorbell rings, the wife goes and rushes to meet her son, who is now alive. The husband makes a wish to say, just to undo the last wish. Don't want to undo, we just want to undo the last wish. So when the wife opens the door, throws the door open to embrace her son, nothing's there. But you're in the dad's mind, because the way it goes. So you know that what was there was not the sun, hale and hearty, nice and healthy. It's the sun something else. But you don't see anything, so it's a tale of terror. King makes a point of saying that EC Comics, the horror comics in the 50s and earlier, well, no, probably 50s, showed it. They did a version of the monkey's paw and they showed it. It was a zombie, essentially. So when the wife opens the door, it's there. Ha! That's horror. That's not terror anymore. Tale of terror is you thinking, what could have been there? Tale of horror is when they show it. And it's gross. It may not be gross out gross, but it is disturbing. It's horrific. Perfect word for it, since that's what we're talking about. Horror. Terror is at the top, horror is in the middle, revulsion's at the bottom. The third story that Stephen King goes over, I don't think he goes over the monkey's paw, but I thought it was pretty illustrative. He talks about it, but he doesn't go over the plot. The third story that he does talk about the plot for is an EC tale, Foul Play. Foul Play by Jolly Jack Davis, in which a villainous baseball player, pitcher, conspires to win the game by any means possible. The limited characterization is this guy's heart is as black as midnight in a coal mine, to paraphrase another part of King's book. And then, of course, the other opposing team, the good guy team, has a player on it. This star player is angelic, just the slugger. He's great. So the pitcher is the demon demon child. He's just a complete jerk. The two teams are playing each other, and the bad guy coats his cleats with fast-acting poison. So when he slides in and gets tagged out by the slugger, the good guy on the other side, he poisons him, and the slugger is unable to win the game for the team because he's poisoned and strikes out and dies as he's striking out. Because he can't swing the bat because he's poisoned. And the bad guy's team wins the game. The good guy's teammates realize he's been poisoned after the team doctor looks at him, so they conspire to get him on their own terms. They don't turn him into the police, they just want to get him. So they invite him for some award ceremony that he's the honor of, appealing to his sense of self-worth. It's not, even King mentions that that's pretty weak, but, whatever. The guy's stupid as well. So he goes late at night to the ballpark, all alone, the bad guy, and the team's waiting for him. The scene ends with the panel. The team is on the field, ready for a night game. The lights are on. The team doctor is ducked out as an umpire. He dusts off home plate, but it's a human heart. It's the bad guy's heart. The batter steps up to the plate, and he's holding a leg as a bat. And the baseball is the guy's head, and it looks like it's been hit a bunch of times with this leg. One of the bases is an arm, one of the bases is a foot, and the other base is another arm, whatever. And then, of course, the intestines are what's lining the base lines, base paths. That's gross. That's just disturbing image. It's creepy. It's not horrifying. It's just creepy. It's gross creepy. It is the revulsion thing. You can have something hit the bullseye and get all three. You do not necessarily want to even aim for all three, but it's possible that you could. King makes a point of saying he's going to shoot for terror. If he can't get terror, he'll shoot for horror. If he can't get horror, he'll shoot for gross out. He's not proud. He'll do what it takes to creep out somebody when he's telling a horror tale. That's perfectly reasonable. He doesn't see him as a hierarchical. Well, he does see him as hierarchical. Hierarchical. Terror is the purest emotion. Revulsion is the lowest of them, and horror is in the middle. But as King points out a few times, you can't lose your taste for junk food in this genre. You have to embrace the awful, but whichever way you want to say it, OFFAL or AWFUL. Once again, as little characterization as you can get. If the bad guy is just, this thing's just the outsider. It's just trying to kill you. As said in the rest of the Tale of the Hook chapter, called the Tale of the Hook, Tales of the Hook, King talks about monstrosity, and that's what we were talking about earlier with monstrosity. The outsider, if the outsider has so little characterization, it's just the outsider, run, or hey look, it's the outsider, run, or hey look, it's the outsider, kill it. If that's all you got as far as characterization for the hero and the villain, you have a Tale of the Hook. You're not doing anything except trying to scare kids or adults, which are kids' heart, if they're horror fans anyway, as King points out. So when you have this little characterization, how far can you go? I've had a problem trying to figure out the first tarot card, which is the Thing Without a Name, as I mentioned before, because it seems to be Tale of the Hook with just a little bit more characterization. Frankenstein is a thing without a name. The Hook is a thing without a name. Frankenstein's, of course, named Adam, but the Frankenstein, quote, monster is a thing without a name. And the Hook is not actually, you don't name your child Hook, especially if he doesn't have a right arm or a right hand and he has to get a hook for a hand. That's cruel and unusual. Do you want them to be a pirate? What's wrong with you? So no, the Hook character doesn't have a name. He's called the Hook. That's as much characterization as you get. That's as much characters you get. But for Frankenstein, of course, you get a bit more character. Thing Without a Name, you may get a bit more character. You may not all that much. You may feel some sympathy for it. You may not. It is, of course, a thing without a name, and you don't feel any sympathy for it. Either Pennywise or the creepy spider scorpion thing at the end. But is it a thing without a name? Which it should be, because it's huge. It's not a short book. There's plenty of characterization for the other characters. The heroes, there's close to 1,000 pages in it. It's not a short campfire tale. Be one heck of a campfire. It'll take you, a couple of weeks to read if you're tearing through it, and you will tear through it because it's a great book. But there's no characterization for the monster. I mean, it gets worse. It talks about how bad it gets. I guess that's characterization. But there's never sympathy, which there seems to be with the thing without a name card. Of course, we're going to go over that more next time. To go over what's coming up, the Tales of the Tarot. The Thing Without a Name is typified by Frankenstein's by Mary Shelley. The vampire is typified by Bram Stoker's Dracula. The werewolf by Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the Ghost of the Bad Place, not typified by any book specifically. There is, he mentions and then discounts Turn the Screw, which is sort of a ghost story, but sort of a fantastic story, as we talked about earlier. And of course, Haunting of Hill House, he talks a lot more about, which is also a fantastic story. He talks about Ghost Story by Peter Straub, which isn't what we would consider the archetype. Not what I consider the archetype. I have issues with this one because sometimes it's the ghost, sometimes it's the bad place. Sometimes the bad place don't involve ghosts, sometimes the bad place aren't the character. Sometimes the vampire's the character, the werewolf's the character. Sometimes the bad place is the character. Hill House was the character. In House of Leaves, the house, Navidson House, was a character, a true character in as many ways as you can think about. Of course, in Carol, it's the inanimate-animate fusion monster, which I still fight, but I can use it. It's an interesting concept to have in your arsenal. And of course, the Tales of the Tarot will also deal with terror, horror, and revulsion. And we'll be shooting at these at that target as well. And hitting it for the most part. Hitting it more with ghosts than anything. Ghosts really freak me out. Oh my goodness. So we're going to talk about those later on. So that's Tales of the Hook. It's the simplest one. It's makes for a short video, actually, since it's only I'm only at 35 minutes, which is getting to be short for me. So we're going to continue with Stephen King. The Tales of the Tarot next time. Thing Without a Name. Until then, we're going to continue with the horror tale. My name's Drew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.